think the injuries at this point have hindered yourself because you felt comfortable at championship level early on in your career? You've won division titles in League Two and you're applying your trade in League One. But do you feel that Achilles injury is still holding you back? Do you feel that you haven't made that full step into the potential that you showed at your early promising career?
Yeah, I think football's looking in hindsight now. Football's a game of timing and consistency. So at the time, I proved to everyone I was more than good enough. It wasn't that I was capable, but could my body withstand the rigours of professional football, which I went on and proved that I could. But obviously, the higher levels that you play, that's the more demand on your body. The time when you got struck when the iron's hot. So when I was a youth prospect coming through from the age of kind of 19 to 22, when I was playing regular championship football, that's when people take notice of you. And ultimately, that's when you're more likely to get a move if you are to the Premiership, because them clubs and the hierarchy can see they can either make a bit of money out of you or they can kind of mould you into something that can go on to do a bit better. But that was my kind of period where I had the injury. So it was just whatever it was down to, that was part and parcel. Maybe my body just wasn't up to the rigours. And ultimately, that was something that affected my time at Brentford as well, because I was flying. Me and I mentioned Ryan Dixon particularly because we were both flying, and we played. It was a particular time when we were snowing, so we had to train on a kind of like an AstroTurf pitch. It wasn't even a 3G at the time, and I remember knowing I couldn't play, but still at the point I didn't really have the people around me to, and football hadn't kind of evolved enough to know how to manage players and look after individuals to get the best out of them. So you just had to kind of train, and you felt a real kind of pressure on you to train, even though you knew you could put yourself in a dangerous situation and flare up an old injury, and particularly with 2 cruciates and a couple of other knee operations at that point. I had to be really careful. I knew what flared it up. So even though I was flying in the first team, I still didn't really get that leeway, you know. Or maybe I did have the leeway, but I didn't feel confident enough to kind of ask the question that I need to sit out here. So I played in this little training game because we hadn't trained for a week of snow, and it flared up an old knee injury. The old knees come back. So I had to take a period of 6 weeks to then rest it and let it calm down and build it up. And in that period, the physio wrongly advised the first team manager that kind of my time was done, you know, that this knee injury was a serious thing, and the scan showed some deterioration in my knee and that I wouldn't play another. I think his words were, because I was told afterwards by a staff member who was my friend, that he said I was done and I wouldn't play for another 6 months, you know, and 6 months more in my career. So that ultimately just shaped my time at Brentford, because I'd already turned down a contract with them, which was on when I was doing so well, which wasn't that improved money. So that it was a natural decision to turn them down, because I didn't feel I was being rewarded for my kind of performances. Ryan turned it down as well, and bad timing again, like just the luck of the draw. I picked up that niggle, and that's when they brought someone else in, and I come back and played the end of the last 10 games of the season, but ultimately the decision had already been made that I'd be moving on, you know.
Just like we spoke about before, football's a game of opinions, but one person's opinion in football can really change the outlook of a man's life and career, and even like where he's living and where he's working. It's funny how one physio's opinion then shaped your next move, your next career journey. Interesting in itself. Can you pick me up from there and talk to me about Southend?
Yes, it's exactly like you said. Like it's your journey, so I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, I've had a great career. I've been blessed. I've worked tremendously hard, but ultimately I've been given the body I've been given. So I feel blessed. I've played 25 years professional football, bearing in mind the injuries I've had. And I've not even touched on the times that my appendix burst on the pitch at Millwall and I played on with it. Not even talked about the double break second metatarsal on my foot that I played on for 2 months. I went through some ridiculous pain, you know, just because I felt I was playing catch up my whole career, and I wasn't going to let these, what I deemed as little things, even though I was in agony, affect me, you know. But that yeah, it is a game of opinions, and ultimately that opinion affected my path, and he was wrong. But I wouldn't change my journey for the world, because I then went on to an amazing club in Southend, and again had some amazing times, which I'd say at every club I've been at, I've had some real highs, even if at certain points you have to move on, because that's the game ultimately. But yeah, Southend came about. I was moving on. I think again it was the right time, even after the you kind of touched on it with the you talked about the budgets and things like that. So the manager had made a lot of changes at Brentford, so it kind of wasn't the same feel at the club anymore. It kept on a few of us, but the club was taken on, and it was a transition where a lot of players had moved on, so it wasn't quite, it didn't have the same feel, and that kind of everything that got success had gone now, and it was a totally different club, and it took a few years to and ultimately the manager lost his job off the back of it, where he probably admit now that he should have kept a lot more boys on to keep that squad, that core, and then added bits of quality here and there. It led me to go into Southend, and he had a great time. Got Player of the Year, scored a record 12 goals in one season, and loved my time at Southend.
Scored 12 goals from centre back, from centre half.
Yeah. All headers as well.
The knee weren't playing you up that season, lad, was it? Bloody hell.
No. Again, I was revigorated, and I'd spent some time. I'd had a bit of time. I was injured when I first joined Southend, and I'd seen a guy called Ian Cow over in Repton Park who really worked on my posture. I was quite stiff, even though I was really fast, which a lot of my injuries come through. I was very stiff and had a unique running style, and he really kind of worked on my posture, all this pelvic tilt stuff, and then real non kind of weightlifting stuff. I've never done sit-up again in my life ever since, but it really gave me freedom of movement that everything just seemed so much easier, and ultimately I was playing League Two at football, so at the time, so it was more comfortable than what I was used to. But yeah, it was like every game was a breeze. I was doing skills I'd never dream of. Those games I was scoring, I was on for hat tricks, 2 or 3 games, and I was just free flowing in the goals. It was like kind of God had possessed me, I've got to pay tribute to some of the service. We had some great wingers in the team that we'd work on a training pitch each day, and it just kind of came like when you kind of get success in a promotion or a cup win like that. You now walk the path and you know success. So as soon as you kind of score a goal, a couple of goals, you've got that kind of that drug that you've got that feeling, you're addicted to it, and now you're not only addicted to the feeling, but you know what it takes. So I was just doing the same things week in, week out, and it was just undefendable. And actually, I remember seeing John Terry do this. I studied John Terry a lot, the way he did a couple of double movements, and then was getting someone to do a block, and his timing I found was phenomenal. And he obviously John Terry was known for his goal scoring, and that year it really helped me that I had to service, and it was all about my timing. And I scored some important goals that year.
What would you say the goal is from that time, that season, you enjoyed the most? Which one's the most memorable for you?
There was quite a few, but for me, there was one. We were playing Gillingham, so there's a bit of a kind of local derby, Southend and Gillingham. It's not really a local derby, but it kind of was, It was live on Sky as well, and we had a crazy character called Bilal Moshni, which I could tell you a million stories about that guy. But he used to get sent off all the time. It's a nightmare. Like the players would pull his hair or say something to him, like he'd go crazy. So he got sent off in the kind of first 15 minutes, and we were really up against it. And it was a real battle. And I remember it was like the 93rd minute, and Ryan Hall from the left wing whipped in an in-swing cross. He had a hell of a whip, to be fair to him. He got to move on to Leeds in the end, but he could have done bigger things if he had the right attitude. And it was kind of like I was running full pelt, near post run, got in front of my marker with a glancing header in the 93rd minute. The place erupted. Like obviously, I'm run off like a madman, Everyone jumps on top of me and blew the whistle kind of 30 seconds later after kick-off. So an important 3 points live on Sky, and then up against the odds, So that was a nice goal.
How old would you have been at this time? in this
I
super
was
season?
about,
Been at Southend?
yeah, I was about 29 at the time. 29 coming on 30. Yeah, about 30, 29, 30.
Yeah, so kind of hitting your prime really as a defender, just coming into your sort of your prime years. No, not for your body. Obviously, that was when you was 14, but for like normal
Exactly. I've
footballers
got
coming
the body of a 48-year-old.
It's very interesting. So after that super season, you guys win promotion that year.
We didn't, so it was a painful year. Ultimately, we got 81 points, and 83. It was a freak year. That 81 would have secured automatic promotion for the last 15 years at that point. I think it was. So it was a real bitter blow that we got 81 points, and there were some real games and moments that cost us because we played a lot of the season with this solid 9 players. You know, we the boys that weren't playing a lot, they didn't really, when they come in, they didn't really know the system and how much you join in and train and stuff like that. It's not as good, never as good as being involved in the team each week. We had some mad freak games where we had a boy come in and he was marking near post and the corner come in and he thought someone said, "Oh, duck." So he ducks and the ball goes in the goal, you know, and costs us an important 3 points home at Morecambe. And that happened a couple of times where players came in and they hadn't played, they weren't match fit and they missed open goals. So only I feel you always got to look at yourself and what you could have done. And yeah, it was a freak year, but we could have with the team we had and the quality we had in that dressing room, we should have got automatic promotion all day. And funny enough, we were known as a team of reprobates because everyone had a story about them, everyone had a path and something to prove, you know. But we had the playoff semi-final, Crewe at home. Nick Powell ultimately went on and signed for Manchester United. I was running back, ushered the ball off the pitch as the boring defenders do to ruin the game. And he trips my heels and then I go down and I land on my shoulder. My shoulder wasn't quite. I knew something wasn't right. I couldn't play through the pain. Strapped it up. I had to come off. And then, so the second leg, Crewe at home, I went to see a shoulder specialist thinking the scan was fine. It was completely clear. And the manager going to me like, "Come on, Mark, man up. Like, get through this for me." And I was like, "I don't know. Something's not right. Like, something's not right. I'm still in agony." And so we went up to Harley Street on the day of the game from Southend, saw a shoulder specialist. He said, "Something's not quite right. Can I just get a scan with my guy who I know and trust?" So Paul Sturrock's phoning the physio, Ben, over and over again. We've got kind of like 2 hours we've got to be at the stadium, you know, and we're still in Harley Street. And he comes back an hour later. He said, "I knew something wasn't right. You've broken your scapula, which is the big bone at the back. I think it was a kind of break, like a 6-inch break." And he said, "If you can play, but ultimately if you go on and play, the likelihood is you could damage it and you could bust your scapula for life, you know." So the decision was taken out of my hands and I didn't play in that second leg. And unfortunately, we lost, which was a painful blow that I couldn't be out there with my teammates.
Must be a bitter pill to swallow when you're injured and then having to watch the game injured. Must again, at this point in your career, I bet you're thinking, how many more of these big sort of playoff nights have I got left in me as well? Guess all kinds of emotions running through your mind.
Yeah, definitely. That was that. It was. I think that was why my hunger at that point was so much as well. It helped me because I just was. It was almost like catch up, and I was chasing success again. I'd had that taste at Brentford, and I knew I could see what we had the squad that it took, and it was really painful because that only was a chance. And early in that season as well, we had the crazy Frenchman as well. We had another big loss. We had Oldham in the fourth round, and the Premiership teams were coming in, and we had already confirmed that Liverpool away was the next round, and it was Oldham away, and we'd already battered them. Don't know how we didn't. How they got a draw at home, you know, and we were League Two at the time, and they were League One, and the crazy Frenchman got sent off in the first 10 minutes in that game as well. So that was another missed opportunity where Neil Harris always takes the mickey because I went mental in the changing room afterwards. But it was the feeling that I was playing catch up, and these were opportunities that I knew only come around a few times in your career, you know. So it was doubly painful.
You mentioned the crazy Frenchman. Just how crazy was he in comparison to some of the other players you've met? He's proper out there.
No, we can't even go into his stories because it was that crazy that he wouldn't. I'll tell you one story, but there was just numerous. So we had Bradford away. The thing was, he's the loveliest geezer in the world. Yeah, he was about 6'5". A lot of Premiership clubs wanted him. West Ham wanted him. He was a quality player, but he had no pain barrier. So he had no. His knees were erect, his ankles were erect, but he had no pain. Like there was some kind of mental block that he didn't feel pain. And then we had Bradford away, and we all get on the coach, and we suddenly saw he was a Muslim, and we saw this kind of like 7-seater Nissan kind of. Everyone's like, "Where's Bilal?" And I looked out the window and I saw him going off in this kind of Nissan, like with a guy in the full kind of turban and the holy clothes. And I saw him in the passenger seat and thought, what the hell's going on here? I said, Bilal's going off down there. And then, so he's down to start this game, by the way. And so we're in a change room. We warmed up and everything. We're just walking out to start the game. And he turns up. He walks into the changing room all sweaty, like he's run here. I go like, Bilal, where the hell have you been? Like, and apparently in Bradford is the country's biggest mosque. So because being in Bradford, he just went to the mosque and visited the mosque, you know, and then rocked up like on kickoff, and then started the game with no warm up. So, and this was just another day in the life of Southend, you know. So it was a very unique club, and that's why I call it the Reprobates FC. Yeah, it was full of characters.
You sound like you really enjoyed your time at Southend, like you have at Millwall and Brentford. You've been quite lucky where maybe it's just the way you are. You mix well. You've enjoyed your time at the clubs you've been at.
Yeah, I'm very professional, but you kind of got a kind of middle ground. I find that you get a lot of players who are just very unique or young and not kind of found their feet yet. But it doesn't mean everyone's different, thinks in it or tries any less, you know. And I recognise that qualities in a lot of people. So you've got the uber professional people. It's the professional mentality, one way, no way. If you're anything different, that you're actually not given 100%. Which I fully agree with, and I'm fully of the professional mindset. But also, and this probably leads to my coaching kind of ideas as well, that ultimately them guys, they might not think the same as you in terms of what the ideology of being a professional footballer is, but they are quality players. So if you can kind of get on the same wavelength as them and get the best out of them, you're still kind of driving to that common goal that you want success on a pitch and 3 points and win the league or pick the cup up, you know. So I had a real kind of a unique point where I'd get on with the senior pros, but I'd also get on with the younger guys who were a little less professional, because I recognised they weren't given any less effort. It was just a different way of life for them.
Was it a tough decision for you to leave Southend? And was it your decision, or was it a mutual sort of thing?
Yeah, no, it was a real funny one. So I under Paul Sturrock, the season after the playoff semi-final, we got to Wembley, and we had the area playoff final against Leyton Orient, the first leg away. I come off the pitch. We got kind of a 1-0 lead away from home, and I come off the pitch, and as I took my boot off, my foot was, and the adrenaline settles down. My foot was in agony, and I couldn't even walk. I couldn't get a trainer. I couldn't get a flip flop on or nothing. And it turns out I broke my toe, and it was real pain. And Paul Sturrock kind of recognised that it was in pain and asked me to kind of play in the home leg to get us to Wembley. I had to inject my foot up. Obviously, I chose to as well. It wasn't kind of a question. He asked me to, and I knew I was going to do it anyway because I wanted to get us to Wembley. And again, another lifelong dream. As a kid, most people dream of playing Wembley, don't they? So I injected myself up, helped contribute to getting us to Wembley and beating Leyton Orient in a memorable night, which was like winning the league that night. But I really wrecked my toe. My toe was then it's wrecked to this day, you know, through the pain that I put it through, even though I was on pain-killing injections. And then Paul, between the kind of the area final to the final at Wembley, Paul lost his job because the chairman deemed that he wasn't getting enough success in the league, even though he'd led us to Wembley. Phil Brown come in, and unfortunately, for whatever reason I don't know, but he just came in with an air of arrogance about him, and ultimately rushed me back. I wasn't ready to come back, and rushed me back because I knew I had to get back in the team, because my place at Wembley, even though it was guaranteed under Paul, it was almost like it didn't count what I put my body through, you know. Even though I've started every game that season and put my body on the line, it was almost like I was going to be the scapegoat, and Phil was going to use me as the guy to let everyone know he'd arrived, you know. And so I had to rush myself back, and ultimately he sat us down on the training ground pitch like he did with them Hull boys, and broke my heart by telling me I wasn't playing at Wembley. And yeah, that was a real bitter pill to swallow, especially after what I put myself through, and the fact that I was a leader of the team, I was vice captain, and yeah, that was ultimately the start of my demise at Southend. Even though I went on to play, I think it was 24 games the next season, and the only reason I left in the end was because I had 25 games. I get a new contract, and Phil again underhandedly tried to trick me into getting rid of a clause out of my contract. So it wasn't really my choice to leave. It was just the way I was treated ultimately in that final year at Southend, which was in a negative way, really.
You mentioned that there was contract stuff going on. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? On the sort of how you felt going on?
Yeah, so I obviously didn't get elected at Wembley, which was really painful. But I chose, like I always did, to adopt a positive attitude, because ultimately, if you become a kind of a gossiper or a negative whinger, that's only going to affect you and your chances in football. So I went away that summer, content to prove him wrong. I went away, did my fitness, worked on my ball skills, worked on everything, and I came back flying, and really kind of shocked him, really, because I think he expected me to kind of throw the towel in. At the time, Southend wasn't a kind of a big paying club at all, because they had a lot of financial issues, but I was one of the highest earners at the club. So I think that had part to play in it. And I played really well over the season. I'd gone to, even though throughout the whole season he was kind of like really bigging up other people, I'd never get a well done. You get kind of you know a lot of players and people involved in football know, like when other players in your position are doing a 5-yard pass and getting likened to John Terry and Rio Ferdinand, and you're not even getting a high five when you're coming off with a man of the match appearance, you kind of know what's going on, don't you? You know, and it was embarrassing, a lot of the stuff that was going on. And at any point he could have told me that I wasn't in his plans, but he didn't at all. So ultimately, after a lot of really, really horrific treatment, it come to a point where he pulled me in. Coming back to your question, he pulled me in with, I had a game to spare with one more game, so I got an automatic new contract on bigger money. He pulled me into the office and said, "Look, Mark, I'm worried that if you kind of play this one more game, your focus will go, and that your full performances will deteriorate." And I was kind of like going, "Pardon? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Like, kind of thing. He said, well, if we kind of take out that clause for that one more game, and you play the next 4 games really well, we give you new contracts. And I was like, is this guy serious? Like, is he? Just tell me, kind of like, I'm not in your plans. Be a man and be honest in my face and say, "Mark, I'm not re-signing you," or "Mark, I don't fancy you." Whatever you believe, because in football, honesty goes a long way, and a lot of players will respect that. And I think that's a big thing that I'll take onto my coaching career, that as long as you look people in the eye and treat them fairly and give them the chance to prove you wrong and tell them how they can prove you wrong, ultimately you need to get, as a manager or a coach, you need to get the best out of every one of your players, because it's a squad game. And so I learned a lot of Phil Brown, a lot of things that I wouldn't do, you know. So I think I thank him for them experiences, even though I'd love to put one on his nose nowadays, you know. but ultimately that time, that after that kind of chat, I said to my agent, look, he's not playing. He's not going to tell. He's scared or whatever. He didn't want to be honest with me. So I said to my agent, go and see him. We went to Roots Hall. My agent went up to his office and said, like, you don't fancy Mark, do you? He went, no. Literally 10-second conversation. Down comes my agent. He goes, Mark, we're moving on. It's as simple as that in football. And he couldn't do that for kind of 6 months. You know, he put me through hell. Some of the stuff was horrific. What he did to me. He made me cut. He made me cut. I was on death's door ill one day, kind of having migraines and stuff. He made me drive an hour and a half purposely into the training ground to see the physio. The club doctor had to come along, and I got rushed in an ambulance to hospital because the drive took it that so much out of me, and I got put on a drip. The PFA contacted him over that, and also because obviously that's borderline abuse, you know, from some of the stuff that he did. But ultimately, thanks to Phil, when they finally let me know that I wasn't going to stay, the transfer deadline was that day, that evening. I think it was like 7 p.m. that night. And so I had about 4 hours to find a club. The two options were Yeovil. Obviously, I'd come off a really successful year. I played really well. So if I'd been given notice, I could have probably got a decent move. But I had 4 hours. Yeovil, which is an absolute slap. They were fighting relegation, which I wasn't scared of at all. And it was Aldershot, which was under my old manager, Andy Scott and Terry Bullivon. My good mate, Chris Barker, rest in peace. Glenn Morris. A few of my old muckers from Southend were there as well. So it was a no-brainer. I had 7 games to help keep them up, and that was my new goal. Thankfully, I scored 3 goals in 7 games. Got Player of the Month 3 months on the bounce, and we stayed up with a game to spare, which was almost it's a bit embarrassing celebrating kind of staying up, you know. But for me, it was a big achievement that I went in and helped the club stay in the league, you know. So that was again, success is measurable, and to keep a club up, I think that's another taste of success.
A little point of view, a little bit of you think you're sticking 2 fingers back up at Phil Brown as well, winning 3 Player of the Month awards in concession, playing well enough to keep the team in the league, standout performances. You know, managers notice these things. A little point of view think that showed him a little bit.
Yeah, it was just such a fresh air. I think I know mental health is a big thing in football nowadays, and in life in general nowadays, and I think it should be, because back then I was a kind of a real old school guy that kind of, like I've touched on, I played through a lot of injuries and a lot of pain and almost like negative thoughts. They wouldn't register. So through the cruise ships, for example, a lot of kind of mental battles do go on, but I'd always adopt a positive mindset that I'd use it to my advantage, and I'd use it to make me stronger. But looking back on them times at Southend, there was some real kind of mental abuse going on, and it was painful. I'd never looked forward going into training. It'd gone from remember real high under Paul Sturrock and getting success even under Phil Brown, to never any recognition after every game. He'd look the other way for the high five as you walk off the pitch. There's some real subtle stuff. So it wasn't an enjoyable workplace. Even though I was an honest pro, I'd go in every day to work my socks off. I'd want to win in every 5-0, everything I wanted to do to the best of my ability. So it was almost that pain. It wasn't so much as an up yours, because I didn't really care about him. He was just a chapter of my life closed now. But it was just that breath of fresh air where I'd gone through not enjoying my job, not enjoying the game of football, which I love, and ultimately I play because I loved it and I enjoy it. So now having a manager that looked after me, didn't flog me, didn't respected my injuries, and would get the best out of me, and I felt at home. The fans obviously took a shine to me. The saddest thing was that the Southend fans loved me to this day, you know, and it was a sad end to that chapter. But ultimately, I could do some positive and enjoy my football game, which I did at Aldershot, and loved it.
Was it quite a short stay at Aldershot in comparative to other clubs you've been at?
Yeah, well, it was only 7 weeks. It was like kind of like the last little bit of the season. So yeah, it was literally I think it was actually 2.5 months in the end I was there, and there were 7 games in that period. So yeah, that was a great time. And then I moved on to Wimbledon the year after, raring to go again.
Moving to Wimbledon, quite an interesting thing in itself. AFC Wimbledon at the time, the rebranding, everything that was going around the club, becoming a new entity for the fans. Was it an interesting project for you? Did it excite you at the time, being involved with all that?
Yeah, it really did. And funny enough, my first ever game of football, it wasn't at Millwall. It was going to watch Wimbledon at Selhurst Park in the Premier League. So it was a strange one, you know. My first game ever that I'd gone to see as a kid. I was now playing for the reformed version of them. So I was really, really hungry. The whole romance of it. I know a lot of kind of lower leagues feel that they bought their way, you know. But ultimately, Wimbledon's a huge club in its right, and a huge fan base that just overnight disappeared. So I was really excited and taking them to the next level. But ultimately, my time at Wimbledon wasn't a great time. I signed under Neil Ardley, who was an old teammate at Millwall. He knew what I could do. But unfortunately, I got a kind of a cyst in my hamstring, right up high by my hamstring, my bum, which was weird. I think apparently comes through stress, but I can't give you the reason why, which had to be cut out and then over the space of a month be packed and then redressed, taken out, packed to make the kind of the abscess where they cut it out heal properly. And so I missed pre-season, and unfortunately that led to me then playing catch up, getting myself fit again, getting an injury over the whole spell of the whole season, really. So it was real. I know Neil was frustrated, but he was nowhere near as frustrated as I was, because I'd just come off a real high with ALDERSHOT and Southend, and knowing real confidence now as a senior pro. And it just didn't happen at Wimbledon, unfortunately. And it was all set up to be a romance made in heaven, because the club was a great club.
Interesting fact. First game I ever went to was at Plough Lane, Wimbledon versus Oldham.
Was it?
Yeah. I never forget it. They used to give us free tickets at our school. If you like played for the football or whatever, they'd give you a few tickets. So, yeah,
brilliant.
Really, really good. So did you enjoy your time at Wimbledon, other than obviously the injuries and not getting much to show as what you did? Did you enjoy the project and being involved with it?
I did, but ultimately at the end of the day, I was signed as a player, and I couldn't play. So it was hard going from the high of ALDERSHOT to then not chasing my fitness the whole season. Almost putting that in hindsight, I put too much pressure on myself. The kind of rush back I tried to get so fit, I almost get too fit off the pitch, where I should have just taken it a little bit slow and just eased myself back in. But again, that's hindsight, because I was so hungry to then taste that success of Brentford, Southend, and ALDERSHOT, which was fresh in the mind. It just didn't happen, and ultimately that then moves on to Braintree, which was up there with some of the best moments of my career at Braintree, under the Cowley brothers, who are doing now amazing things at Huddersfield.
What made Braintree so special for you, in your opinion? What was it about Braintree that you liked and enjoyed so much?
Well, that's funny that you actually use them words, because there's nothing special. There's no disrespect about Braintree. It's a great little club, but in terms of National League, it's been punching well above its weight for years. Led by some great managers. Alan Devonshire for years done a great job there. Formed a real good kind of core of players who Danny Cowley then took over from. So I went there. Again, they took a bit of a risk on me with my injuries. I took a bit of a risk on them with the history of the club. But Alex Woodyard and a couple of boys I knew had been under them at Concord, and they'd done really great things in non-league with Concord. So it kind of, again, it just felt right. And I think I've had the same feeling at all the clubs I've signed for, that I've just got that feeling it's right. Because I could have gone to Wickham at one point and it didn't feel right, and I turned that down instead of Southend. That's why I went to Southend ultimately. I just had that feeling. I trained with them, and I could see the quality in the training room and on the training pitch was more superior than some of the teams I've been in the Football League, you know. I felt that was a chance for me as one of, I don't think anyone had had real league experience to really kind of add some professionalism to this squad, because a lot of them took the pitch seriously, but it wasn't so much off the pitch what they were taking seriously. So Danny and Nicky Cowley really utilised me in that I could show the boys another side of the game and actually help them as individuals, and then ultimately help the team on the pitch. And so I kind of really helped professionalise things. And at the time, even though Danny Cowley and Nicky Cowley knew a lot of people, good contacts in the game, they hadn't really had much hands-on taste of professional football at that point. So they were kind of earwigging me, and we were having conversations, and they respected my opinion, and I really respected them, because they had a real honesty about them, that even with the boys who weren't playing the team, their man management was second to none, the best I'd come across in my career. And even though they come from a background of school teachers, I knew they were destined for success. The way they kind of got you all together, got a common goal, and you was almost like I said, little old Braintree. The chairman at Braintree didn't want success. He didn't want promotion. That was the last thing he wanted. And I remember knocking on his door and sitting down on his table, going to him, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to drag you into League Two, kicking and screaming, whether you like it or not, which he didn't particularly like to hear. With Danny and Nicky kind of like giggling to themselves like over the other side of the room. But that was my mentality, that I saw the quality. They deserved to be in the league from what they were doing and the way it was being led. And Danny and Nicky, at each training session, they limited me to 60 minutes. However much I wanted to train more, it was 60 minutes. And again, I went on to play, I think it was like 45, 46 games that year. I think it was a record 23 clean sheets out of that, and one player of the year. So, and unfortunately, we slipped up in the playoff second leg semi-final game, which was a bit of blow to take, but in the grand scheme of things, where the club with the lowest budget in the league it was huge success, and catapulted them to then go on to Lincoln, and obviously FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal, and smashed League Two champions, and then left them in a very respectable position in League One before moving to Huddersfield.
Sounds like you really enjoyed your time at Braintree. It's funny how life works. You've played at some brilliant clubs and different experiences, but you seem to really enjoy the coaching methods, the technique, the honesty, the approach at Braintree in comparison to some of your other clubs.
Yeah, I think there's been a transition in football from that old school kind of mentality to the new kind of modern way of thinking. And there was through my kind of time in my career, there was a real kind of grey area where the new managers hadn't quite come in yet. So there was, and the old school manager was trying to do things the new way, which Danny Cowley, the boys at Braintree, I don't know if there's a lot of kind of big timeness in football, and everyone wants to be a certain way, live in a certain lifestyle, and there just wasn't none of that. You know, at Braintree, they were normal boys they had day jobs. I was the only kind of one who wasn't working a day job, because I just dropped out of the professional game that season. So I was coaching and stuff, but I didn't have a 9 to 5 like these boys. So they had 9 to 5s. They were picking good money up with their 9 to 5s, but then they were coming in grafting another night, you know, and doing it properly. So we were all decent. It's something different that they were real honesty about them. And Danny and Nicky, from their background of working as well and coming and grafting, and weirdly enough, Danny actually gave me my clean sheet bonus, which I thought was coming from the club, out of his own wages, which obviously I went on to get 23 clean sheets, which hurt his pocket, which I didn't realise. I wouldn't have took it if I'd known, because obviously I wanted to kind of make that tight chairman pay rather than the guy that I respected. But that shows you the calibre of the guy, you know. And he built something real special and really refreshing. That all that kind of, I kind of lost faith a little bit in football. I lost faith, but I lost a little bit of faith in the way that some characters are in football, particularly Phil Brown's kind of era. And it made me fall in love with the football again. And I thought, this is another thing. All the things that Phil I wouldn't take from him, and I'd do the opposite. these were the things I was seeing in Nicky and Danny, the way they managed management. Even when players weren't in the team, they were part of it. They were just as important as the players in the team. And so they played such an important role that they felt like they were on cloud nine. So they were like, when they come on, they'd score wonder goals. Subs would come on and really affect the game, you know. And I saw the qualities in them, the way they looked after players, the way they were honest. Even when boys that were going out on loan, they were coming back and they were sitting them down and saying, look, we need you to do this into our team. This is how we like it. So, and everyone, and I think you, as a player, you're a human being. You play the game of football because you love it. And so when you're getting someone being honest with you, looking you in the eye and wanting the best for you, and you genuinely believe it, because ultimately they want the best for you, because then that will be the best for them, you know. I think that's the way the coaching's got to go, and I believe it is at the highest level, and that's why these kind of managers that aren't adapting to the modern ways are dropping out the game. And obviously they're skills that I've believed in, and they match my values, and that's where the way I'd go in my coaching and managerial career as well.
At this stage, are you starting to think of life outside football? Are you thinking about taking your coaching badges and trying to get up the coaching pyramid into the managerial aspect? Is this something that you'd have been consciously aware of at this time? Yeah.
Well, I've got 4 kids at this point, and so finances is a big part to play. Obviously, I've got to feed a family. I've got to look after 4 kids, so I'm desperate to get that kind of buzz. But I wasn't quite missing the professional game, that ruthlessness and that kind of results-driven business, you know. And I was just enjoying this breath of fresh air, the way that it was at Braintree and the way the Cowley brothers were setting it up for us. But I was always desperate. I think it'd be stupid for me to be involved in the Championship, League One, League Two, and now the National League, and having tasted the Premier League through colleagues and friends that I know and contacts. It'd be stupid not to want to pass that knowledge on, you know. So the only thing that was kind of stopping me now coaching in the kind of professional academies or 23s was the fact that the academies roles aren't that highly paid, you know. They're long hours and not that highly paid, and ultimately I've got 4 kids to feed, and that's the priority in my life. So I've got my own football academy in Bromley and Beckenham Way, named after my number 6 playing shirt, 6 soccer academy, and that was really becoming rewarding for me. And I was loving past, even though it wasn't in a professional capacity, I was running my academy in a professional manner and getting a lot of kids through to professional clubs, but also getting equally as much joy out of coaching a kid who's come to me with no confidence, you know, and watching him flourish and learn. So I was getting a real buzz for coaching. So I'd already decided this was the path that I was going to go on, you know.
How rewarding is it for you when you've got a kid that comes into you at a good level of ability, and then you work with that child for 6 months, and like you said, you see them start to flourish, you see their game, you see them coming out, you see their improvements, getting them to the level where they can go on to achieve or have a chance at achieving a career in the game. How satisfying is that from your point of view?
Oh, it's unbelievable watching it as well. It's so rewarding. It's like you don't need to. You do it for free, you know. Like when you first start playing football, you do it for free. And it's probably be the most footballers they'd say to play for free, even as a senior pro. But it's one of them feelings that you do for free. Just so rewarding, helping people on their journey, and that's ultimately why I do it as well, because I felt I was good enough for the Premier League. I didn't reach my goal, but what's going to stop me now helping others, you know? I just got to adjust my mindset, and that's something I had to do early on, where I was such a results-driven business football, and I knew what to do professionally to get the results. I had to then tailor that a little bit to be a little bit not as harsh, obviously more encouraging, quite soft, and learn my coaching styles for all different age groups and how to get across to other kids and almost like being a language they understand, you know. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much, because they're transferable skills that I can then, when I step into a professional game, I can just tailor that to a point where I can get the best out of individuals, but on a professional level. But coming back to your question, I equally get as much joy out of seeing. I trained my mate's nephew the other day, a 4-year-old, and he's just started playing football, and he's kind of his dad's sitting there. No disrespect to him, but he's sitting there just wanting the best for his son, and he doesn't know about football. But this kid's 4 years old, and I'm kind of there with a grin like a Cheshire cat, because I've got him nailing step overs and drag backs and dropping the shoulder. The kid's 4 years old, you know, so I get equally as much joy and reward out of that. So when I find out the other day that one of my kids before Corona, that I first started my first coaching path, I got to see England under-16s. And then I've got kids that will kid today that I train in the Millwall Academy that no one really fancied him, you know. But I could tell he had what it took. And ultimately, I know what it takes to become a professional and have a long career in the professional game. So I kind of pushed him, said, look, you need to watch him. And then Mill got him in and signed him within 2 weeks, and now he's a standout player for them. So on all the different levels, I love it. Even I even get kids who come and they're really shy and they struggle with group environments, you know, and I build their footballing confidence up, but their social skills improve, and then their confidence in school improves. Next thing you know, I've got them into a Sunday league team. So it's just like football on a professional level. All results are measurable, and I get as much satisfaction as a kid joining his first grassroots team to one of the elite players moving on to a professional club. You know, that's why I do my academy, because it's just so rewarding, and I love passing on my knowledge.
It's fantastic to hear that, and I think you made some really valid points, because sometimes we see people that have played at a brilliant level unable to share that expertise with people with a lesser ability. So the fact that you can have such a fantastic career and then be able to share that expertise with people that may not have that natural ability or that natural gift, it's only going to make it easier for yourself when you then go up the divisions or up the leagues back into the professional game. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of players. I had Andy Marshall the other day. He's a child first team goalie coach. A lot of players will tell you going to coach. It's not like starting a game, because you have got that professional mentality and you know what it takes. It's almost like just in your way of thinking. And to be fair to the FA, the coaching courses are good. So I like to do as many courses as I can. I'm a UEFA A licence. I've got my youth modules 1, 2 and 3. So, and they're always putting like CPD on, and it's good to kind of, if you're passionate about being a coach, doing as many courses as you can, because it's probably like driving your car, you know. You can do as many courses as you can, but ultimately you take a bit from certain managers, a bit from certain players, and you put your own spin on it. So I think if I do enough coaching courses, if I speak to enough people in the game, have as much discussions, even with obviously we're having discussion now. It's great to talk and bounce ideas off each other, and ultimately that's going to form my opinion and make me become a better coach. And if I can kind of get my ideas over to I don't know, like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, up to an 18-year-old. Ultimately, when I then do what's come across an 18 to 23-year-old or a first-team player, and I've been there and done it, my communication skills are going to be better, and he knows that I've walked the walk, you know. And ultimately, I think if you add the honesty to it, you've got a great start to a mutual respect that someone else can achieve from.
Footballers are more of a role model than ever, especially with social media nowadays. What was it like in your day, not having social media, players not being as accessible or as public view, if that's the right wording? How would you sort of compare your era of football to the players nowadays?
I think it's exactly the same. I think it's exactly the same in terms of the way you've got to live your life and portray yourself. But the problem is the spotlight's now on the guys with social media, with obviously the media looking for everyone to slip up and the negative stories selling more than positive ones. But in my day, when I first started, there was no social media. When I was kind of we had a lot of the older pros. A big thing about being a professional and succeeding in the game was your attitude. And attitude was the word back then, but there's so many more words now which attitude actually explains. So it's your mindset, your professionalism, how you conduct yourself on and off the pitch, kind of the people you surround yourself with, your levels, your training levels. There's so much. The word attitude back then was a kind of blanket word for about hundreds of kind of like topics, you know. Yeah. So, but So kind of the older pros brought us up and the clubs brought us up. You have to be professional on and off the pitch, and that almost spilled on off the pitch. So even without social media, we knew how to behave. We knew what we could and could not do, you know. And obviously, you would still get caught out if you're in a local town. You'd get grassed up. The managers and there's a lot of stories about Fergie. The managers and clubs know enough people who love that club. If you're out taking liberties, the club's going to find out about you. I remember when I was coming through. I was a youth team player, but McDonald's was down on the corner next to the Mill training ground, and me and I can't remember. I think it was Alan Dunn. We were walking down there to sneak in and get a Big Mac or whatever it was at the time, and Alan McCleary and Keith Stevens drive past, and we get a bib. And it was like, don't even think about it, you know. So the spotlight's on you for whatever generation you're on. But nowadays, the players have to be really careful. Like I said, the social media thing. Everyone's got a camera phone, so you just got. I think if you make football your focus and it will keep you straight, it'll keep you level-headed. It's just the money comes into the game, and that's a byproduct of success. But again, us older pros, I put it down to a lot of the advisors and agents. They're in the game for the wrong reasons, really, and money. And they need to be taking responsibility how they kind of nurture these young pros, because you've got some big names who are unbelievable characters and footballers, and they're obviously they're young kids at the end of the day. They need to have older pros looking after them and telling them how to manage that money. So there's big debates now about how players can becoming bankrupt when they're on thousands of pounds a year. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, you know. So I think us older players got a big responsibility to help the younger players, because the spotlight's on them more than ever, especially with the pressures to be a baller and all the kind of the way footballers are perceived, you know. When footballers at the end of the day are normal people from all different walks of life, and everyone's different.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Marcus Rashford. We've seen, obviously, with the spotlight of his campaign to feed children in this country during the pandemic and the 6 weeks holiday, the government now making the decision to back his campaign, which I've got to say is absolutely fantastic. What are your thoughts on what Marcus Rashford has been able to achieve? Oh,
it's obviously phenomenal. The one individual can turn a negative situation with this coronavirus, where lots of people are losing their lives, and obviously there's no football. He can keep up his training, keep himself fit, but also adding some positivity, and it kind of shows the worrying times we live in, because everyone wants to kind of report negativity and stuff, but no one's talking about what professionals are doing out there. There's so many kind of high-level professionals and professionals of every kind of level who are giving back to their communities, donating money, starting charities, and Marcus obviously has really pushed himself out there. It's I might be wrong, but it seems single-handedly forced himself into limelight with his social media and the backing of a lot of people. That's the only reason that now number 10 in the government have been almost forced into something they didn't want to do, you know, because a footballer, where only, 2 months ago, they're sitting in front of a TV to the nation telling us footballers should donate their wages, or what they say, or kind of giving up their wages, you know, but they don't talk about how much footballers already do. Like Zaha, for example, I believe it's 10% of his weekly wage he gives to charity straight from his wage packet. And it's not just one player; it's numerous players. Raheem Sterling. It's within football. We all know what they're doing, but it's just the media that don't portray it. So I take my hat off to Marcus, because it's an unbelievable. Is it 20 million he's raised, and he's pushing the causes even more so. So this is not the end of it. So it's fair play that finally these are getting recognition, rather than footballers not being a scapegoat. But why were footballers targeted like in the corona to give up their wages? Like, why don't the government kind of they're letting these kind of tax avoidance schemes go on with these huge multi-billion companies? Why don't you ask them for some money? Football is such a huge kind of industry. You've got players on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week in the Premier League, but you've got players in League Two on smaller clubs on £150 a week. How can you just blanket term a whole footballers in general, when it's such a You ask kind of League Two, League One, even some Championship footballers to give up their wages, you're going to put them bankrupt. That's the reality of football nowadays. That there's such a gulf between it. It wasn't a fair thing to do. I don't believe. And footballers will always step up, but they need to get the recognition for the good work they're doing as well. You know, because like you touched on, footballers know they're a role model, and there's a lot of good work being done in the community. I believe Millwall have won numerous awards for their work in the community. I think Bristol City won it last year. This is stuff that the PFA are pushing, and the kind of organisations around football. You don't hear a lot of good work being done by footballers, apart from spilling out of a nightclub, you know, or doing something maybe they shouldn't be doing on a night out when they're actually, for once in their lives, relaxing, you know, and being a normal person. And again, with the media, you don't know what the truth is, what not the truth is. It's what sells papers, you know. So I think footballers do get an unfair rap, but sometimes do get a fair rap. But you need to report equally on the good and the bad, you know.
Interesting. How excited are you for the return of the Premier League? Regardless of whether you think it's right for football to return or wrong for it to return, as a footballing man, it must be something that you're immensely looking forward to.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a hugely debatable topic, whether it's right or wrong, safe or not. But your question wasn't touched on that. So, a few weeks ago, I started coaching with my kind of small group sessions when the government allowed us to one coach to 5 players, and to be back on the grass and coaching again in a safe environment was like a godsend, you know. I was absolutely buzzing. I was walking at cloud 9 again, and it was so great to be amongst young footballers playing their trade and wanting to be better at whatever they're doing. And it's the same with the Premier League. I thought it wasn't a big deal at first, but when I saw that fixture list released, you know, I was looking at it and thinking, oh, we got football every night of the week, and I was absolutely buzzing. And to be fair to him, I felt Liverpool should be given a chance to kind of win the league, even if it's going to be taken away from them. They won't get the recognition they might do if it was a normal year. But yeah, as long as it's in a safe environment, I'm really happy to have football back again, because it's such a major part of everyone's lives, you know. And I think not having football, not having sports, mental health again's thrown around the term, but that exercise, that focus, and that not everyone loves football, but it's the beautiful game. Whatever capacity you're in football, we're doing podcasts, interviews about it. You might be a journalist, you might be a football player at whatever standard you are. You might be a physio. There's so many. I had an interview with the Premier League, head of youth at the Premier League the other day, and that's the beauty of football. It doesn't matter. Everyone can get involved in a certain capacity. And to have it back on the TV at the highest level of the Premier League, let alone the Championship, which obviously would be supporting Millwall and my old boys Brentford. Just absolutely buzzing to have it back. And then obviously I can sit there with my boys and watch the football, and we can all communicate in a social way. We can have something to chat about again, you know, rather than all this negativity on TV.
One thing I found quite interesting watching the Bundesliga, and I hadn't been a massive fan of German football before, but suddenly getting more into it, is the players and the interaction from the coaching team with the players and the players' responses with the referees. It's going to be so interesting on the Premier League to actually hear what the players are saying. And I know for yourself being a top-level ex-pro, it's probably not as exciting, but for us, people that may not have heard exactly is it's being said in the technical areas and what the players are talking about, it's going to be quite a fascinating period, to be honest, and quite an interesting experiment for football.
I think it's an interesting point for numerous reasons. I remember playing at Upton Park with Millwall versus West Ham, and I couldn't even hear my centre-back 10 yards away from me because of the noise, let alone fans hearing what was said on the technical area. And then I remember playing in kind of friendlies at non-league games where you could hear the guy giving you dog's abuse and you wanted to rip his head off, you know. So it's a real kind of contrast. So, and then I've got another story when I asked Danny and Nicky Cowley when they went into the room with Arsene Wenger, and they were desperate to get some information out of him on what he does differently from them and them to further their managerial game. And he just said exactly the same things, you know, of what they already knew, but he said it in a different way. So I'm as interested as you are. I'm interested as much as fans are, because that's the beauty of football. That all clubs, all managers, all kind of teams, and they've got a different way of thinking in football. They've got different style. They've got different philosophy. So I don't know whether they're going to kind of mute it with some crowd noise, or because obviously the players put their hands over their mouth to say anything that it can't be misconstrued and used against them. But it's going to be interesting to hear what is said, because on one level you want to hear some tactical knowledge, but you can't. They don't want to give away their tips and things like that. And obviously there's a lot of pressure in football where the swear words come out quite a bit. So there's so many ways to think it. It could be interesting, but I think they're going to put in the crowd noise. But it would be interesting to almost like no holds barred, you know, and that the plays and the management of brief, that everything will be heard, and we get a real the watcher and viewer gets a real insight into the reality of professional football, you know, because it might open up and might open people's eyes to actually the complexity of the game and how much depth it's gone into in terms of the stats and preparation and tactics, particularly tactics. And I'm making an analogy. So my young boys under 9s just going into under 10s at Arsenal, and most dads on the sideline will be like, come on son, but actually them players have been given information to do maybe only use their left foot that day, or it might be you can't pass the ball, say you've got to take on as many players you can, you know. And it's the same in professional football. Them players have been set up regardless of what they can do. They're playing in a team format to be the best they can be, but also a team. So it would be interesting to see what the managers set them up with, because remember, games to games, they change depending on your opposition. There's so much more preparation goes into it, down to the individual player you're coming up against. How do you deal with a danger player? Do you show a perceived weaker player? Do you leave them on the ball? All these little things come into the game that the football fans might a lot of them would have considered it, but maybe obviously not being in the nitty gritty of football, and might get a glimpse of it, which again will just, I feel, will show the normality of football and make the football fan grow and love football even more so, you know.
I also think it's a great idea. See how we're zooming live right now? It'd be great if every fan could zoom their face on their chair. So if you're a season ticket holder, you could zoom your face onto your Millwall seat and they can project that somehow. Don't know if that's possible with technology. I might be getting a bit too tired of myself here.
Yeah, you're thinking big, mate. I like it. You never know. This lockdown's opened a lot of avenues. Like I've launched a virtual academy off the back of it, you know. So it's definitely opened up a lot of avenues. I know one of the mums at my academy. I'm not going to say her name but she's for her son and her dad. She's bought these a mill. They're doing cards that they put on the seats for the first home game. She bought it for Father's Day coming up on Sunday. So it's a kind of a huge picture of them. It's got their name and stuff. So it kind of gives the players a bit more of a feel, you know. But yeah, definitely. I've got another friend who's involved in football advertisement. So they, in the Premier League, you know, the advertising balls are digital. So they sell the right, that space. So in the Premier League, in certain countries, they can resell that space on the advertising balls, and there's huge money in it. So in India, it might be Carlsberg beer or whatever. But so in India, that's been broadcast. It's like a green screen on the hoarding. But then in the Premier League, it might be Beck's beer or whatever it may be, you know. And they can sell that advertising space over and over again. In the Premier League, particularly, is huge money, and they sell that. Oh well, if they can get the rights to a club worldwide, you're looking millions of pounds. So again, there might be, you've got an idea there with the fans. It might be in the future that, I don't know, you get kind of like a gaming share or something like that, where you live in the experience of the game when you're not even there. You never know. The game's technology is going to be taken on. That's where the game's going to be advanced, really.
One thing that we're not all sure about is how this will impact the cash flow and money coming into the game next season, because don't know why, I'm just feeling a certain reluctancy from clubs to want to commit to big transfer deals this summer. big wages, aging players maybe released of contracts rather than renewing. It's an uncertainty and an uncertain time for footballers and football coaches. May I ask what your thoughts are on everything?
Yes, and I touched on it earlier about with the government asking all footballers. I know it's such a gulf. I know obviously some of the top Premier Leagues teams, it will affect them a little bit, but it won't affect them as much as this kind of Championship, League One, League Two. And I know Southend, for example, they've just been relegated to League Two from One, and they've tried to furlough their whole entire squad, which ultimately means their players taking a kind of a huge pay cut. I know some teams who've been really successful, and they've had to release all their regular first team players. AFC Wimbledon, so it's had a huge impact with football, and I think economics in the whole world, and let alone the UK, is going to be drastically affected once we come out of this. But football's no different. I think players are going to find themselves that what they could have been kept in a kind of a non-COVID world. Clubs are going to have less funds to now keep them on, and they've got that cash flow. And the lower you go, clubs do work week to week on the cash flow and rely on that money through the gates. And I know that in the National League, particularly, some players aren't paid in the summer because there's no cash flow at the club. So it would be an owner bankrolling them players. So it's real worrying times for all clubs, really, let alone even more so the League Two, One, lower clubs.
We've touched on this a little bit in previous episodes of the video cast. I mean, how do these chairmen, bearing in mind there might be uncertainty going on in their financial business lives, keep ploughing money into these clubs to keep them obviously running when they're not getting that ground money, that revenue, that sponsorship money potentially, even that help from anyone other than that furlough scheme? How is that going to keep? How does it stay sustainable? That's the point that I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I'm not too sure the answer. I think a lot of people, even the chairman, who are usually very, very business savvy guys, I think they're obviously exploring every opportunity, like furloughing players. I know a lot of clubs have set up kind of community donations, to try to just keep the club afloat, because just to keep a club running, it takes a certain amount of money, let alone paying the wages to players. So I think everyone's just exploring every avenue. Obviously, players can take wage cuts, but I think there's football initially next season is going to be maybe a completely different look. Where there'll be a lot of players. It's a record number every year of how many players are getting released and not coming back into the game. So the youth, it might give the chance for youth to step up, and take their opportunity, because as a youth, you are naturally on less money and around your first professional contract and stuff. I've been in particularly teams struggling who've really had to rely on youth. But it might be that the clubs are looking at going under. We don't know the actual full fallout yet, do we? Because we're kind of like midway through it, and football's not really come back apart from the top level, the Premier League and the Championship. So it's a real worrying time for obviously owners of clubs or even employees who that is their full-time wage, down to like the stewards, down to it might be the cooks or the entertainment, the executive suites, whatever role at a club. I know a lot of people have been kind of losing their jobs, so it's a real worrying time. And I don't know the answer, but I know clubs will be looking to save money wherever they can to reduce their outgoings.
It's the mental health thing as well that we're touching on. Depression and oppression go hand in hand, and nothing is going to impact people's mental health worse than not being able to pay their bills, not being able to pay for meals or food or whatever the case may be. And also, I think a lot of volunteers at these clubs who don't get paid, who are there for the social aspect of it, to be involved, to have that bond. If you take away these clubs, it leaves a big void and a big hole in a lot of these communities, from youth football all the way, like we mentioned, to volunteers. And I just think it adds a lot of strain on the mental health aspect of people not having their clubs. So again, it's just a knock-on effect from one thing to another,
Yeah. Every club I've always been at, every club in football, I'd probably say that there's a core of like real good people at every club, and then without them guys, they're as important as the playing staff on the pitch, because they keep the club ticking. And like you said, more often than not, they're on minimal wages. They're not doing the job because they it's the money. Their roles don't come with a lot of money, and a lot of them are doing it for free. So that kind of social aspect, the players and the club being part of a kind of a team, and that whole club ethos of drive for success, they're just as much as part of it as the boys on the pitch. So I feel for them as well, because they live for a Saturday or a Tuesday night, and yeah, the mental aspect's a big thing, because football takes away. It's like most things, whatever your passion in life is, and we're all different, but football makes you forget your problems. You've got some issues, you go that obviously it adds to your frustrations if you don't get the 3 points. But ultimately, you're going there as your club, and you're going to fight, and you're going to see your friends, you're going to speak to your people that's your seat for 20, 30 years. This is your club, and that's why football is such a great game, because football is life. And it's a bit of a kind of throwaway statement, but football means so much to so many people that it is a big part of their life.
Footballers in particular will spend a great deal of their time doing something that they love. They first started playing football because they loved kicking a football. They loved playing with their mates. They loved that competitive atmosphere, the competing against one another. Why do you think so many footballers leave the game at their end of their career with the complete opposite feeling for the game, where they haven't got that passion, they haven't got that love, they don't even want to watch football, from talking to some ex-players? Why do you think that is, Mark?
I think it's just the culture of what it breeds. I've never understood it really myself, but I know Tony Cottee, and Tony Cottee's never kicked a ball since he retired. A friend of mine who's actually completely changed his kind of whole mentality now, Glenn Morris. He used to openly say he didn't like football, and he didn't want to do football afterwards. He's now kind of fell in love with football again. He's doing great things in coaching, and I think that's off the back of him having such a great time on the pitch that he's almost living a second lease of life, because he's a now club legend, and he sees the value that he can give to others through his coaching and what he can pass on. It's a strange one. I think everyone's different, but I think it's 100%. It's a results-driven business. It's a high-pressure environment, and it might be just that ruthlessness that, unfortunately, in a high-pressure environment, you get certain individuals who will do whatever it takes to get that place in the team. And that's quite an unstable environment, where some people might be out there again playing for the qualities of fun, the team spirit, and everything like that. And then they've almost them qualities don't really get you much in the reality of the game. That if you don't produce week in, week out, and not 8, 9 out of 10 performance, you're thrown to the wayside. And I think maybe that you put so much into the game over such a vast period. You obviously, for me personally, I've put my body on the line. My body's kind of like not that healthy. I can't really play football too well nowadays because my knees are shot to bits or whatever it is. You feel you've given so much, and maybe they feel they've not got much back, but there's not much after support once they finish the game, when they struggle, because that's all you've known. So maybe you dropped into some mental battles, which I know personally that I've struggled with the fallout of game, and the fact I've missed it. Because it's all you've known since the age of, like you said, 9 years old, whatever. I went into an academy at 13. So I've been in a professional club from the age of 13 to 37. So maybe they feel let down. It might be the mentality that they don't feel they've earned the amount of money they warranted, because certain clubs are very ruthless and they want to get you as cheap as possible, possibly ultimately. There's loads of reasons to it. I can only speak for myself personally. I don't know what the guys said to you. Have they touched on any of them points?
Yeah, a lot of those points. And I always find that some players don't really want to talk about the reason, because it hurts them, where they had so much love for the game. So it's like it's kind of just sucked it suck the love of and the passion away from them, whether that be not achieving their full potential, maybe not getting the breaks and chances that they thought their talent deserved, whether it could be injuries or just being around people that want good for their soul. I don't know. I can't put it down.
I can understand it. There's obviously various reasons. I touched on some that just might spring to mind. You know, it's a big topic in how ex-players looked after the game. Is the PFA doing enough? And the PFA has done amazingly well for me, so I'll never put them down. But everyone's life experience are different, you know. And I feel it's a real kind of major point that players need to be looked out after their careers are done, or whatever stage that is. But yes, it's a real picking point. I personally will always love football. However, I've had some real downs, but I've also had some real ups. And there might be the point where people don't want to speak about it because they ultimately see life in professional football at some point. And if you speak negatively against it and maybe some of the harsh realities, that people in the game still might not welcome you in, you know, because you spoke badly against it. I don't know. But the game is moving on. The reality is football has to be talked about, especially like touched on mental health. Mental health hasn't been talked about for years, has it? It's been a taboo subject. And admittedly myself, I'll open my hands up and say, like, I only mental health for me was for people I deemed crazy, you know. Mental health wasn't such a forefront of my mind, where I now feel it's as important as your physical health, if not probably more important, because mindset in football is such a big thing. And if your mindset is right, you can go on to achieve whatever you want to do in life. It shows you can achieve something one way in a positive manner, but it can also go the other way, you know. I've had my eyes opened up to that as well.
Well, I'm glad you're in a good place. And I've got to say, I've really enjoyed talking to you about your career. And it's been very interesting. And a lot of the things I heard today, I didn't really know. Because when you look at someone's stats, you only see what you see on the paper. So hearing the stories behind it and the reason for your moves, and like just even like your things with Phil Brown, I had no idea of the way that had sort of gone down. So to hear your side of the story, it was quite eye-opening. And I really thank you, mate, for sharing it today.
No worries. Yeah, most footballers could start write a book on their stories, you know.
I love it.
It's not unique. Most footballers could write a book on the stories. I could tell you a book on just the Southend times.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get a chance to get down your academy sometime and see some of your coaching firsthand. That would be brilliant.
100%.
Get the cameras down. Great.
Yeah, definitely. Open invitation whenever we're back and running. 100%. Love you, down.
I appreciate that. Thank you ever so much for your time, Mark. And I look forward to catching you again real soon. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, James. Bye, mate.
Soon. Bye.